True. Let's go to Karma Green, we steady on the rise. Digging truth from ancient scenes, we open blinded eyes. Rhyme sharp like pirate lines, we break the bondage tight. Kanji speaking revolution, keep the fire burning. Trumpet drums guide our stride, we march with purpose proud. No more silence, we collide, our voices thunder loud. Politics and history, we stitch them in every verse. From Pharaoh's throne to Yaoundé streets, we claim the kanji verse.
The Kintampo complex represents a significant cultural manifestation of the late Stone Age in West Africa, primarily identified and extensively studied within the modern borders of Ghana. While most of the concentrated diagnostic evidence of this complex is in Ghana, the discovery of Kintampo artifacts in neighboring Togo and Cote d'Ivoire suggests a broader regional influence or interaction spirit that extended beyond contemporary national boundaries. Amber R. Stiles' foundational research highlights the Kintampo complex within the context of ceramic late Stone Age sedentism and subsistence in Ghana, underscoring its importance in the regional developments of West African prehistory. Right, so the Kintampo complex spans a considerable temporal range, with archaeological dates extending from 4,000 years ago to around 2,000 years ago. A notable concentration of these dates, however, clusters around 3,500 years ago, indicating a period of particular prominence, widespread presence, or peak activity for the complex. Ongoing research continues to yield new chronological data that may push the timeline back a little further. So the Kintampo complex is frequently described as possessing a complete Neolithic package, a term that encompasses types such as groundstone tools, ceramics, and often microliths. Its artifact assemblage is distinctly ceramic late Stone Age, a feature that differentiates it from earlier non-ceramic late Stone Age traditions in the region, right? So the use of the term Neolithic package has been criticized by certain scholars, right? And, a lot of scholars do not agree with this uncritical application of Eurocentric concepts to African context. In the traditional European model, the Neolithic package, comprising of farming, pottery, and polished stone tools, signifies a revolutionary shift to a fully agricultural and sedentary lifestyle. While Kintampo exhibits these traits, its characterization as an almost classic case for intensification implies that their manifestation and socio-economic implications in West Africa may diverge significantly from the conventional European narrative. The presence of a Neolithic package in Kintampo should therefore not lead to automatic assumptions about a full sedentary or specialized agricultural society. Instead, it prompts a deeper, more nuanced investigation into the specific ways these technologies were integrated into Kintampo lifeways, their actual socioeconomic impact, and how they might represent a unique African pathway to food production and sedentism. Check onto Diop's model of ancient African demography posits a sustained east to west population movements, with groups from the Great Lakes and the Upper River Basin migrating and coexisting for millennia with indigenous West African microlithic hunter-gatherers. The Kintampo complex provides compelling archaeological evidence supporting this framework. Oliver Davies' initial Saharan migration hypothesis aligns partially with Diop's model, suggesting a population influx coinciding with Saharan desiccation. However, Diop's model frames this not as a single event, but as part of a longer-term process of movement from classical Africa. The observed similarities in ceramics, lithics between Kintampo and Saharan, possibly more easterly sites, could reflect shared cultural roots or ongoing interaction within this east to west corridor, rather than a simple sudden Saharan exodus. The rapid spread of pearl millet cultivation from the southwestern Sahara to Burundi demonstrates the existence of a robust communication network facilitating the east to west transfer of knowledge and practices, consistent with sustained interaction zones. Evidence for continuity with earlier West African phases like the Poon microlithic traditions at the K1 and K6 rock shelters does not negate migration, but supports Diop's core tenet for long-term coexistence and cultural synthesis. Kintampo represents not pure indigenous development nor pure population replacement, but the outcome of interaction over time. Kintampo's versatility across diverse Ghanaian environments reflects successful adaptation by groups who likely integrated local knowledge gained through coexistence with indigenous microlithic populations, as Diop suggested. The definitive presence of domesticated pearl millet and caprine, sheep and goats, points to the introduction of pastoralism in agriculture, likely originating further in Northeast Africa and classical Africa. And this, further supports the Diopian model. Particularly Viral Dinsil talks about how, sheep and goats species originated from this region of classical Africa and during the late Holocene migrated into infra-Saharan West Africa. The dominance of wild species in Kintampo assemblages and clear mixed economies of hunting, gathering, and fishing alongside domesticates strongly aligns with Diop's model of a millennia of coexistence. It demonstrates the integration of new domesticates into existing indigenous foraging strategies, rather than their wholesale replacement. Migrants adopted and relied upon local wild resources. The ambiguous evidence for cattle and the suggestion that livestock functioned as liquidatable assets for trade fits a scenario where animal husbandry was managed by smaller migrant groups within a broader socio-economic network involving indigenous populations. Diop's model directly challenges the Neolithic revolution cliché. Kintampo's unique character as a complex blend of Neolithic traits in ceramics, groundstones, and domesticates within a predominantly foraging economy exemplifies the diverse lifeways with no modern parallel, arising from long-term population interaction and synthesis, as Diop envisioned for Africa's Holocene. The diversity among Kintampo sites and their connections to other West African sites reflect the dynamic regional interaction, where Diop described that ideas, technologies, and people moved and mixed over vast distances and long periods. Kintampo's emergence can be seen as the crystallization of a new socio-economic system, resulting specifically from the millennia-long process of interaction and adaptation between migrating populations, bringing ceramics, domesticates, and new technologies into the societies of the indigenous microlithic hunter-gatherers of West Africa, who possess deep environmental knowledge and foraging expertise. The Kintampo complex aligns significantly with the Diopian migration model, providing material evidence for the introduction of northern domesticates and technologies in millet, caprines, and ceramics into West Africa. Crucially, it demonstrates the dominance of indigenous foraging practices and a resulting, synthesized mixed economy, reflecting the long-term coexistence and integration Diop proposed between migrating groups and indigenous populations over millennia. So the Kintampo here stands as a testament to the complex cultural and socioeconomic formations that arise from this deep historical process within West Africa. From roughly 4,000 years ago onward, intensifying aridity across the Sahara drove mobile pastoral and agro-pastoral populations southward into the burgeoning Sahelian belt. As these groups entered the savanna forest ecotone of what is now northern Ghana, they brought with them domestic cattle and material expressions of a long history of Saharan pastoralism. Distinctive stone projectile points, small polished axes, arm rings, and beads, together known archaeologically as the Kintampo complex. And the Kintampo complex validates the Diopian migration model, speaking about the movement of Happy River Basin-related populations and the overall replacement of the coastal refugia or the microlithic using ancient West Africans that existed prior to this group. So radiocarbon dates from the Saharan Steinplatz-Hertz range from 8,500 to 3,800 BP. At key sites such as Ntereso, Kintampo, and Daboya dated to around 3,500 BP, these Saharan-derived artifacts appear intermingled with the local Poon phase microlithic quartz industries. Faunal assemblages from these contexts include cattle, the first clear evidence of domestic stock in the region. Yet, there is little signs of a mass demographic influx around this time. Instead, hunter-gatherer communities steeped in extensive wild resource exploitation quickly adopted pastoral elements where ecologically feasible, while retaining core aspects of their mobile foraging lifeway. The lighter bent complex expansion from the Upper Nile during the 5th millennium BP brought cattle remains dated to 5350 BP and 3915 BP in Wadi Hawar, along with ceramics showing decorative affinities from Eshahainop to the Lake Chad Basin, And this continued into the Malian Sahara. The bow wave diffusion model, advocated by scholars such as Kevin MacDonald, may help explain what actually happened to the Kintampo civilization, right? So you see a hybrid economy being implicated. Herding practices and ceramic forms of Saharan origin coexist along long-standing traditions of hunting, gathering, and the use of microlithic technologies, right? And this is going to illuminate some of the linguistic and genetic puzzles that have confounded scholars in the region. Although some scholars have posited that the working hypothesis of Afroasiatic and its substrates may be linked to these Saharan incursions, there is no Chadic or Berber languages that persisted in the Volta Basin. Rather, this Saharan pastoral wave seems to have been absorbed and acculturated so rapidly that only faint echoes survived in later material cultures. And possibly there's subtle genetic signals among these West African populations, right? By the men-Holocene, therefore, the peopling of West Africa was not necessarily a simple tale of sweeping migrations of displacement, but a more nuanced story of environmental pressure, adaptive innovation, and cultural fusion. The Kintampo complex illustrates how ideas and small-scale population movements over time can reshape local lifeways in profound ways, creating new economic strategies tailored to changing landscapes. So when you're looking at, the flow of people, Cheikh Anta Diop's migration model proposed a sustained flow of these people and ideas, as we see in the Kintampo civilization, from the Happy River Basin into infra-Saharan West Africa, right? And when you're looking at the shaping of, complex societies such as the Akan, a range of genetic, zoological, artistic, and technological markers, from deep-time haplogroups to stylistic continuities in sculpture, corroborate this Diopian vision by revealing a Kemetic imprint at the heart of West African cultural foundations. First, the genetic record provides a powerful anchor for north to south connection. The EM2 haplogroups and its subclades can be used to trace migrations from pre-dynastic Kimi or Kemet populations to populations that are now found in the Akan of Ghana, and they have these subclades at very high frequencies. This deep genetic signal validates the Nana Asaman oral tradition that claims a Kemetic origin for the Akan. Rather than later, West Saharan or Sudanic movement, it points to a demographic substratum that stretches from the Happy River Basin into the Niger-Volta Basin. Zoological data adds another layer of evidence. The helmeted guinea fowl, or Numida meleagris, according to Dr. Kevin Shillington, whose ancestor occupied Sudan's Kordofan, appears archaeologically in the first half of the second millennia BC at Kintampo in central Ghana, and in northeastern Nigeria's Gajigana II-A phase from 1500 to 1200 BC. Its deliberate introduction and domestication across vast distances attests both to long-range exchange networks and to a Kemetic trap whereby prize animals, along with herding knowledge, journeyed into West Africa well before the later trans-Saharan camel routes. Artistic parallels further underscore this Kemetic-Akan linkage. Intriguingly, some Nok terracotta heads from central Nigeria bear a small circular motif echoing the sun emblem ubiquitous in the Old Kingdom of Kemet. In Ghana today, the same sign denotes one's vital force or life essence, a resonance that suggests either direct borrowing or a shared symbolic vocabulary transmitted along ancient channels. Metallurgical techniques likewise trace a now West Africa continuum. Lost wax casting first attested in the Happy River Basin as more complex crucible-attached systems in what is now Ghana and Cameroon come to light. These innovations in controlling gas pressure and metal flow bespeak not merely isolated invention, but the adaptation and local elaboration of Kemetic prototypes in Inner Africa. Museums display these connections visibly side by side. At the Metropolitan Museum's African Origin of Civilization exhibit, an 18th dynasty Kemetic canopic jar depicting a queen stands beside an Akan Nsode memorial head. Both serve as enduring tribute to elite women, and they share serene expressions, elaborate hairstyles, and facial scarification. They were used in funerary rites to safeguard or embody the deceased. Likewise, a 5th dynasty statue of the Kemetic priestess Murti faces an Ashanti staff of office. Each wooden object communicates authority through carved symbols, ritual deposition, and the inclusion in funerary or courtly assemblages. And nurturing prototypes reoccur as well. The Asante Akwaba fertility doll mirrors Kemetic mother and child figurines in ritual consecration, idealized forms, and use and rites designed to secure healthy offspring. Finally, shared regalia, thrones, and sandals highlight analogous conceptions of sacred kingship. In both ancient Kemet and the Akan culture, royal seats are not mere furniture, but sacrosanct emblems of divine legitimacy. While sandals confer magical protection and underscore the ruler's mastery over spiritual and natural forces, these parallel institutions of authority once again reveal a common symbolic toolkit that Diop argued flowed from the Happy River Basin into the forests and savannas of West Africa. Taken together, these genetic markers, animal introductions, artistic motifs, metallurgical practices, and ritual implements constitute a multi-faceted validation of the Diopian migration model. They demonstrate that the pharaonic civilization did not simply diffuse rumors of pharaonic grandeur, but the Happy River Basin in its totality contributed deeply to the genetic makeup, material culture, and ritual life of Ghanaian populations like the Akan. And the Kintampo civilization stands as a testament to this movement, this pastoral movement from classical Africa into contemporary Africa, right before the Common Era. And the archaeological evidence of the Kintampo civilization, its different assemblages, shows that this root, this link from the Happy River Basin into West Africa is not necessarily rooted within contemporary times, but it was part of an extended process. Prior to 4,000 years ago, most of infra-Saharan West Africa was uninhabited. And as the Holocene changed, the ability of a lot of these pastoral populations to migrate into Ghana existed. And it was a slow movement, that begun during that time and that was exponentially increased, especially, from 3,000 to 2,000 years ago, right? So if we analyze the lineage of the Akan, the Akan claim to descend from the Wagadoo civilization, and the Cisse dynasty, the founding Cisse dynasty of Wagadoo, claims to come from Aswan. So can we use this archaeological evidence to link these populations with the Kintampo culture as an intermediary, an early intermediary, linking the, pastoral and agro-pastoral civilizations from the Happy River Basin into West Africa? Yes. Building on Eric's observation that the Wagadoo kinship system was fundamentally Sudanic in character, one can trace its ideological underpinnings to institutions of rule that flourished along the Middle Nile Basin. In that region, monarchs exercise authority through a fusion of political, religious, and ritual prerogatives, intermediating between cosmic forces and the welfare of their subjects. As these models moved westward, they likely carried with them notions of sacred kingship, courtly pageantry, and the administrative offices necessary to levy tribute and mobilize labor. By the time the Soninke codified Wagadoo's royal court, they had adapted these Sudanic templates to the ecological realities and social networks of the Western Sahel, embedding Happy River Basin-inspired regalia and ceremonial forms within new patron-client relationships, framed by local chieftaincies and lineage confederations. The proposal by some scholars that Wagadoo's founders may have originated as refugees from the Tichik culture offers a tantalizing scenario, even if archaeologically unverified, for cultural transmission. As the Tichik Basin experienced progressive aridification after 2000 BP, communities specializing in agro-pastoral systems may have been compelled to seek more hospitable environments farther west and south. In such a movement, they would have brought with them not only material know-how, stone architecture, millet cultivation, and pastoral management, but also the ritual symbols and genealogical narratives that legitimated elite descent. Even in the absence of direct Tichik period wreckage in Wagadoo heartland, one can envisage how oral traditions and preserved echoes of these ancestral homelands later reframed to explain the Soninke's divine right to rule. Musa Lam's multidisciplinary case for a Happy River Valley origin of the Soninke incorporates archaeology, Egyptology, linguistics, orature, and systematic theology to build a coherent picture of this transmission. Archaeological parallels in pottery motifs and settlement patterns suggest affinity between Upper Nile sites and early Wagadoo era tells. Egyptological research highlights shared iconographies of royal symbolism, such as the uraeus-like crown forms, while comparative linguistic analyses reveal substrate borrowings and core vocabulary related to kingship, irrigation, and sacred geography. Moreover, Soninke oral epics recount ancestral figures arriving by river in elaborate boats, invoking the life-giving role of the Nile and situating Wagadoo's foundation within a broader paradigm. And if we look at the Soninke, they would be a Paleo-African or Niger-Egyptian population, along with the Akan, rooted in the Happy River Basin origin, which is what would be the Kantiore culture according to the Diopian migration model. So when we look at all this evidence, from ancient Ghana, the Kintampo culture, to these modern populations, these sketch a migration corridor running from the Happy's floodplain through the Lake Chad Basin and into the Western Sahel. Along this axis, successive waves of people carried adaptive strategies from cereal cultivation to cattle husbandry, and sovereign ideologies that combined divine kingship with community stewardship. Whether those pioneers were displaced Saharan farmers or emissaries from Nubian courts, what emerges is a portrait of the Wagadoo and West African civilizations as both an inheritor and innovator, polities that crystallized the political and symbolic heritage of the Happy River Basin, while tailoring their institutions to the Sahel's mosaic of ethnicities, trade networks, and seasonal rhythms.
Let's go to Karma Green, we steady on the rise. Digging truth from ancient scenes, we open blinded eyes. Rhyme sharp like pirates' lines, we break the bondage tight. Kamji speaking revolution, keep the fire burning. Chimpy drums guide our stride, we march with purpose proud. No more silence, we collide, our voices thunder loud. Politics and history, we stitch them in every verse. From Pharaoh's throne to Yaoundé streets, we claim the Kanji verse.